And people who go through menopause get this bump in insulin resistance at that time, which is why it feels so abrupt. Like I was fine, and all of a sudden I'm gaining weight and I've got belly fat. Why do people gain weight at the menopause transition? It's there.
Hello and welcome to the Thriving Doctors podcast. I'm Dr. Vicki Rackner, your host. We are here to help doctors like you get more of what they want and less of what they don't want. You are in for a treat today. Our guest is Heather Awad, a family doctor and certified coach helping professional women at menopause and beyond lose the weight that won't budge. Her proven systems work with their hormone changes instead of against them, showing women how to enjoy food, reset their metabolism, and achieve lasting results without dieting or willpower. She hosts the Vibrant Menopause podcast, where she shares real life strategies for weight loss and midlife health. Heather, thank you so much for joining us. Could you just tell us your story? What is it that you do and how did you get there?
Sure, sure. Thanks for having me. So I'm a family doctor, and to be a little bit vulnerable, I thought of myself as this like food as medicine doctor, in the primary care clinic. And if someone had high cholesterol, I would say, "Tell me about what you eat for lunch." And so that was, oh, nutrition was always important to me. And I'm going along just fine. And then all of a sudden, in my middle 40s, my weight starts to just go up and up. And I'm thinking, what is this? I eat pretty healthy and I've been fine. So I tried things that had helped before, like after I had babies, and those things didn't work anymore. And I like experimenting with food, so I thought, well, maybe I'll try some of these things like keto or something. Keto made me feel terribly sick. I tried other things that just didn't do anything. I did eat less, move more, which does not work. And I even used a program, like an app on my phone, and I worked really hard. It was really restrictive. And I got to the end and ended up bouncing back even higher. And the weight was just going up, up, and up. It wasn't stopping. And I thought, I am really in trouble because I was 50 then. And I knew I was in an unhealthy weight range. And I thought, I don't want to live like this the rest of my life. So then my period started to drop off, and I thought, oh, wait a second. I'm in the menopause transition. What's going on here? So I thought there's got to be a specific answer. So I dove in, and there is. It turns out that women and people who go through menopause get this bump in insulin resistance at that time, which is why it feels so abrupt. Like I was fine, and all of a sudden I'm gaining weight and I've got belly fat. So I figured that part out and thought, okay, I can do this with the hormones and how estrogen interacts with the digestive system, and that's going to be pretty simple. But then I was also in a coaching program for doctors because I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my career at the time. And some coaches there also helped me with emotional eating and stress eating, which I didn't hadn't noticed that I was doing. If you're not, it's not it's not Bridget Jones where you're laying on the couch crying with a big tub of ice cream, I didn't realize that there were other things that were emotional eating too. So between those two things, it got really simple and easy to drop 27 pounds. And then I thought, well, I know how to eat now, so maintenance was really easy. So I thought this could be the thing I bring to the world. This could be my passion. I could have my own business, which I'd never really thought I could before. And so that's when I started my business in 2021, and I've been coaching professional women to permanent weight loss ever since.
How wonderful. What an inspirational story. Might I ask you some more questions about this?
Please.
So, I am a person who's struggled with my weight pretty much my whole life, up
Mm,
and down, tried every single diet. And
yeah.
actually, this idea of what happens around menopause, it's new to me. So, I'm wondering, was this a new thing for you?
It was. I mean, I had, if people are people that were kids in the 80s, I used to go on diets with my mom sometimes. That was like a bonding fun thing. I look back and I think I did not need to lose any weight, so I'm not sure why we did that. Um, But yeah, my weight was fine. I was a an active kid, played sports. Not that you actually out exercise your things, but I think I'm just was also very insulin sensitive, really until the menopause transition. And so that was just worked in my favor. My mom also was very into nutrition. She used to teach nutrition at the elementary school. So we did have vegetables and home cooked meals. So maybe I didn't get into processed food quite as much as other people or quite as soon. Because we even, most of my adult life, I do cook and make meals. So that also was in my favor. But I think a lot of it is just I was lucky to have good insulin sensitivity until the menopause transition.
Well, interesting. Oprah talks about her weight loss journey and she talks about the story she told herself. Like there was something broken about her that she'd tried and failed at so many diets. And I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about somebody who's been at a good weight, who knows about nutrition, who educates patients about nutrition. I'm just curious about how the struggles went for you, like what story you told yourself before you finally figured this out.
Yeah. Well, at first I thought, like other doctors, we're kind of achievers. Like I'm just going to do this one. I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that. And one of these will work. And then none of them were working. And I was like, this is really, um, really terrible. And then some of them were just terrible. Like when I'm restricting food with this app diet and not ever eating pizza, having a whole list of foods I don't eat. I was like, this is misery. This I'm definitely just am not down for. And I'm not someone who has very much willpower. So I was just like, well, okay, I can't do any of the willpower things really, because that's just not going to work for me. So that's also a story, right? But it turns out I didn't need willpower to lose weight. So there was a lot of like, I'm failing, I'm failing, I'm failing for sure.
Why don't more people understand the hormonal implications of weight?
I think that we're only just starting in the last 5 or to 7 years really talking about perimenopause and menopause in a way that's meaningful. And so it's going to take a little while. I mean, I went to a menopause conference and there was someone who got up and said, eat less and move more. And I wanted to jump up from the back row and yell, that's not true. How old are you? You look a little younger than perimenopause. I don't think you know. Um, so I think there's just a lot that people haven't explored yet. But it's there. I mean, I looked at what's the problem with why do people gain weight at the menopause transition? It's there. We're not that great about even counseling our patients about weight loss in general, right? About lifestyle stuff. The people that say go completely plant-based, I mean, that works for a lot of people as well. But for a lot of people, it's not realistic or they just don't want to do that. Um, so there are different ways. In general, I had a very insightful rheumatologist ask me when I was um, coaching her for weight loss. She said, overall, did you eat less, do you think, when you were losing weight than before you lost the weight? And I had to tell her, yes, I do think I did. If you looked at the whole day, I do think I ate less. But, I did some audits. I quit counting calories, but I did some audits sometimes. I was eating over 2,000 calories, losing 27 pounds. I mean, I'm tall. I need to eat food. So, so people, if they said, well, you ate a 2,100 calorie diet and lost weight. Yeah, it was more about, we can talk about this eating aligned with a way that works well for people with insulin resistance, for people at the women at the midlife transition and beyond, any person experiencing menopause.
All right, so this worked for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, with whom have you shared your ideas?
Sure. Well, I coach professional women and that's who I've shared my ideas with. I do speak a lot on podcasts and YouTube channels about this. I'll frequently get someone who reaches out to me and says, you talked about a lot of things and I decided to try this one thing and I lost 10 pounds. So there's a lot there. So, I mean, I would also just kind of, if anyone in your audience is, having this problem, to think about one thing that I talk about and just try one thing and see if it makes a difference for you.
Well, please share with us what are some
Okay.
things that people can try?
Okay. So when you look at our grandparents, they ate a life where they ate meals and they didn't really snack. And there was a thing, like my grandma said this to me. She says, how I keep trim. And she was, a perfect size 12. She wasn't, tiny or anything. She says, I eat my healthy meals and I don't eat snacks. And the funny thing is, I was reading Jason Fung's obesity code book, and he talks about that that was actually a thing at the time. Like grandmothers said this. It wasn't just my grandma. So when you prioritize meals and don't eat in between, it works for the body with insulin resistance. Because if you consider eating, you eat, and then most of that turns into glucose, right? And your glucose goes up, and the insulin comes in to process it, right? Brings it into the cells that need it right now, stores a little bit of glycogen in the liver, and stores fat. Perfectly normal. We want this to happen. If we eat meals, then there's maybe 3 or 4 hours in between when you're not doing anything with your digestive system. You're not eating, you're not drinking a sugary drink. And then your body pulls fat for energy naturally. And what you want to have happen in an insulin resistant body is to have some time where insulin goes low. The digestive system is kind of quiet as far as the hormones go. And then my people lose weight that way. If you consider, overnight we fast, it's fine. Um, Jason Fung's group does a lot of intermittent fasting because he works with people with diabetes. And I would say about a third of my clients will use some form of eating window or intermittent fasting. And the rest of them eat 3 meals and usually no snacks.
And do you have recommendations about foods to eat or foods to avoid? Is that part of your plan?
Yeah, I do. Um, because of the whole pizza thing, where I decided I'm never giving up pizza again. I really like pizza. Um, I don't tell people not to eat most anything you can have if you want it. Now, instead of having, half a pizza on Friday night, I have a couple slices of pizza and I have some vegetables with it. So I don't do any, um, avoiding any of that. The one thing I tell people to avoid, and it's the one thing I'm really a bummer about, is their sweet creamer um, for their coffee. And I usually just say, experiment with having the plain cream for a week and see if your life is still beautiful. And usually they tell me it is. So that's the one thing that I tell people, don't have that ever. Um, but what I do tell people to have is that we really need um, now both protein and vegetables or berries at every meal. And I'll talk to people and they're like, I think I'm getting enough. And but lunch is like a green salad with no protein, or they go home and there's a partner who cooks and it's meat with sauce and there's no vegetable. You really every meal, some protein, some vegetables. Now, I'm not a counter or tracker anymore. I don't calculate macros. I do like to occasionally do a spot audit on things, but um, I think in 10 years from now, we're going to remember this time as we went crazy about protein, especially for menopausal women. I think it's overblown, but we need some. We need a serving of protein, meat, vegetable protein, any of the things, but some at every meal. And I really recommend the vegetables because you get the fiber or berries, which have the same kind of blood sugar curve profile as the vegetables at every meal.
And how many meals do you recommend having a day?
I recommend 3, but I'll tell you that some of my clients, because I work with professional women, they're busy, right? And they're like, if we stop and we say, okay, tomorrow, where are you going to plug in your meals? because maybe tomorrow is different than next Tuesday. So they look and they find that. And some people have an early enough lunch and a late enough dinner that is too long in between. And so if that is you, like you're like, I have 6 hours and I cannot make it. Um, because nobody wants to be hungry or feeling tired or whatever. We want to nourish our bodies. So at that point, I tell people to have a mini meal in between. And I don't like to call it a snack just because a lot of us, we say snack and then it becomes a treat, which is not going to, if you're trying to lose weight, is not going to serve you. So I say a mini meal. So again, protein and vegetables or berries. So a little bit of Greek yogurt and some berries, or hummus and your favorite dipping vegetable, just an avocado. So something that uh, a little mini meal, but again, always have that minimum, some protein, some vegetables. So some people have three in a mini meal, and some people just have three.
I would consider myself an emotional eater. I'm curious, the women with whom you work, is that a common thing?
It is. It definitely is. And sometimes we don't even know that we're doing it, right? We're like, well, I was bored or I was stressed or um and it turned out when I actually really examined it, I was eating my uncomfortable emotions to try to get them to go away, give yourself some dopamine hits from sugar cereal that's in the pantry. Or sometimes I was amping up a good emotion. Like I'm super excited about what just happened. So I go eat something to amp that up. So we all do it. And one of the ways is to just start noticing it in a really kind of compassionate way to yourself. Like, okay, I'm eating, whether you're eating it, whether you're standing in the pantry with your hand reaching toward the sugar cereal, um, and saying, what emotion am I actually feeling right now? And you don't have to get fancy about it. It can be sad, mad, glad, stressed, bored. And then ask myself, am I physically hungry? Like we've kind of forgotten what that feels like. Am I physically hungry? No, I'm definitely just want to eat the emotion. And so now I stop and I think, can I just feel this instead? And we go through an exercise where we actually like, where am I feeling this? Like when I'm stressed, do I feel like someone's choking me? Do I feel a tight band around my head? Is my stomach upset? Is there tension in my shoulders? Where do you feel that? And then a lot of times, the amazing thing is, sometimes in under a minute, it just floats away again. And you didn't have to eat it.
As women go through your program, what are
Mhm.
some of the hardest things for them, and what are some of the surprisingly easy things?
Yeah. Well, I do ask people to cut back on sugar, notice where it is in their day so they're having it when they want to have it and choose it. So they end up eating less sugar in general. So then when they go to eating meals, that gets easy because they don't have a constant craving for sugar if they're not eating it all day. And that part they say, "Oh my gosh, this is such a relief. I'm like never hungry. This is super simple and I'm just losing weight." That's the easiest part for people. I think the hardest part is eating with other people is the hardest. We have people that want to love us with food. We have people that do push food on us. We have ideas that if we go to an event that I'm not a good guest unless I eat something of everything on the buffet or, on the potluck line so that I can tell every single person how much I enjoyed their dish. There's a lot of that in our culture. And some people have it more than others, but that's the hardest one, I think, that comes up over and over.
And how do you support your clients as they take a look at that?
Sure. Well, I had this one client who was in real estate. And so she was talking about going to holiday time. She's going to all her clients' parties. And she said, I have to eat all the things, otherwise I'm not a good guest. And so we talked about what is a good guest and even how you might teach a kid to be a good guest if you have kids. Or if an alien came down and said, how I'm going to come to this party with you, how would I be a good guest? And the things that you would tell that person are, thank the host, compliment, how everything looks. Talk to other people and be interesting. Ask questions. And when you leave, hug the guest if you know them well. Thank them for having you over. Tell them what a wonderful time you had. And none of that is about eating or drinking anything. So just kind of freeing yourself from the idea that you can't be an excellent guest if you don't eat all the things. Because people with food allergies go to parties and they don't eat if they have peanut allergy, they don't eat the peanut brittle. And still they can be a good guest. So you can too, and choose what you want to eat.
Nice. Very nice. How long does it take before somebody sees results? Maybe a change in what they want, or a change in how they manage their feelings, or a change in their relationship with what it means to be a good guest.
So people get results pretty quickly, actually, with small changes. Um, I usually ask people to withdraw from sugar, which only really takes about 5 days, and then intentionally choosing when they want to have sugar from then on. And then we move to eating 3 meals and no snacks for the first step. And people start losing weight right away because we all eat stuff all day long. Um, I should say most of us. But so people really get a big change right away with that. The social things take practice, and the feeling our feelings take practice. And some of that stuff never goes away either. So just normalizing that these will get better, but you might still just have to notice that you're reaching for food because it's a feeling. Um, and you might have to practice with different groups, um, you know, eating what you choose. I had one client who was a retired retail buyer, and we literally went through every relationship she has, and she practiced through each one to change them how she wanted them to be now in midlife. And it helped her with her eating. She didn't eat out of frustration. She didn't eat stuff that people pushed on her anymore. Um, but it's funny, simple changes do lead to big results. Most people start with a couple things, like I said, like getting to eating the meals instead of eating all day and start losing weight. And then it's just, adding on the other things, looking at your schedule to see how it works, looking at a holiday, how that's going to work, looking out, eating at your in-laws' house is going to work, out with the girlfriends, how that's going to work. Um, Everything is figure outable. And so we just kind of add those things on once we get some of the basics going.
What does this kind of eating mean in terms of serving meals to the family? Do your clients just find that everyone in the family is eating in a new way? Do they make special meals for themselves? How does that work?
I recommend people do not make special meals for themselves just because I'm working with doctors, lawyers, business owners. They don't have time for that. So I think that you serve the food that you're going to want to eat. And do your kids need protein and vegetables? They do, right? There are times when people have told me, like, I've got my strapping young men, sons are coming home from college, and they think that salmon with a salad is an appetizer. So you can add in starchy things. When you're insulin resistant, you don't handle starch quite as well as you used to. So you're not looking to have a big scoop of potatoes with every meal, but maybe your college sons are, or your, high school athlete daughters are, or growing kids are. So I recommend that that's just a side dish for them that you might have sometimes if you want it, but when you're actively losing, you might not. You make a meal and, like macaroni and cheese. At some point, I was like, macaroni and cheese, I don't need that at midlife at all, but my kids like it, so it'll show up at the dinner table. I don't want any, you know? So that's what I recommend is that if you need to add some starchy stuff for your family, go ahead. If you're the one creating the meal. Again, if you have a partner who's making something and it doesn't quite fit your formula, then what do you have in your fridge that you can bring out? Can you bring out some greens and vinaigrette that you're the only one that wants that? That's super easy. Take a handful and put it on your plate. Or a raw vegetable that you like. Um, you'll make it work for you, but um, yeah, you can work around family members for sure.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm
Sure,
just wondering if you might be willing to compare and contrast your approach versus GLP-1s.
sure. So GLP-1s, as we know, are a great tool when they are needed. And I think for people who've had a lifetime of obesity, that they are a great tool to consider. I feel that people who are doing just fine until midlife probably don't need it. And I don't have any judgment for people using it, but this is my concern. When we look at the data, we've had them long enough now that two-thirds of people quit them by 1 year and gain the weight back. Most people gain the weight back faster than they took it off. At 2 years, only 15% of people are still on these medications. And most of the time they go off the when you people report that they've gone off because of cost or because of side effects. They don't feel well on them. Um, and I was at a conference recently, actually the one that you and I were at. I was talking to some hospitalists who said, "Oh yeah, we do hospitalize people for, the more severe side effects of these medications. A gut that's frozen or um, something similar." So they don't come without their downsides. The other thing is that my obesity medicine friends tell me it is hard for me to get people to eat the right nutrition when they're on their GLP-1 because their hunger goes down, and so they just don't eat that much. They don't pay that close attention to what they eat. They're just happy they're losing. And also they're getting to be common enough that I used to always get the people who are like, I don't want to go on a GLP-1. I want to come do this with nutrition with you. And now I'm also getting people who are saying, I'm on a GLP-1 and I've hit a plateau. And they've just told me there's nothing more. This is how much that medication is going to get me. It got me 40 pounds, but really I need 60 to 70 off. And then when I talk to them, I see that they're not eating the nutrition. So I had a therapist just last week that I was coaching, and she hit that 40-pound mark, and couldn't do any more. And so I'm working with her and eating protein and vegetables at every meal so that she'll get going again. Because you do still need both. And and so it may be an easy button, and we see people on TV who do great with it. Um, but it's something just to be very mindful and careful about choosing. Like, am I choosing a lifelong drug? Am I choosing a short-term drug? Um, what can I do?
Well, everything you're saying makes such great sense. I've asked a lot of questions. Have we missed any important points that you want to make sure you communicate?
I do have one more really great secret for for your doctor group. So, a savory breakfast is one of the most important things for people with insulin resistance and for women at midlife and beyond. So I follow the glucose goddess on social media, and I loved her book, The Glucose Revolution, and she talks about that when we have a sweet breakfast, that first meal of the day, whether it's at 6 a.m. or noon or wherever you have it, it dysregulates your blood glucose for the whole day.
Mm.
So if you eat the same lunch and the same dinner on Monday and the same lunch and the same dinner on Tuesday, if you have a sweet breakfast, like you're having a homemade muffin and your coffee with sweet creamer on Monday, and then Tuesday you have some leftover chicken soup, and coffee with no sweetness in it, those 2 days, your blood sugar is going to be higher all day on that first day because that first meal just sets the pace for it. We have data on this. I can't explain it why after overnight that's how it goes, but it is. So I feel like people lose weight much easier if they eat a savory breakfast. It's pretty rare myself personally now that I ever have a sweet breakfast. I mean, occasionally, on a holiday I might. There's a place I go to brunch with my kids a couple times a year, and sometimes I'll have, pancakes with whatever syrup they're having. But it's pretty rare because this is how our bodies work. This is one of the things that people reach out and say, "Oh, I just did that. I just switched to the savory breakfast and I lost 10 pounds." That's a great, I don't even want to call it a hack because it really is a great nutritional um, thing to do for ourselves at midlife and beyond, nourishing our bodies. Um, and so I love that.
Can you give us some examples of what you mean by a savory breakfast?
Yeah. So you can have eggs with vegetables. I'll often take spinach and saute it in the morning or mix it in with eggs. Another one, there are a lot of great cultural bean breakfasts that are great to eat and have. Then you get protein and fiber in there. You can mix in some other vegetables if you want and drizzle some olive oil on. Keeps you very full and is very nutritious. If you like sweet things better, then I like Greek yogurt with berries. And then maybe you sprinkle something crunchy on top, whether that's chia seeds or walnuts or whatever you like, because I always want you to eat what you like. And then you can sprinkle things like pumpkin pie spice that is just spices and no sugar, or cinnamon. These are naturally sweet and will taste good, but they're not sugar. They're not going to raise your blood sugar. They're not going to raise your insulin levels. Those are ideas. Or leftovers, like I said.
Leftovers for breakfast. I'm not sure I would have ever thought of that.
Yeah. I got to tell you, my brother-in-law always did that, and I always think he's a little bit funny, a little bit weird. And then when I learned this breakfast thing, because he'd be like, "Oh, I had, leftover fish and vegetables for breakfast," and I'm like, "Okay." Um, and then when I read about this savory breakfast thing, I thought, that man is brilliant. I just didn't know.
There you go. If somebody is interested in learning more about what you do and how you do it, what's their next step?
Sure. Well, you can find me on social media on Instagram or LinkedIn. It's easy, and you can reach out to me there. But if you go to my website, it's vibrant-md.com. I'm happy to give your physician audience a free mini session if they'd like to just talk through things. What I do is usually hear someone's weight loss story, and then I give them their two next best steps. And like I said, small changes can really lead to big results. Our group program is open right now. It isn't always open. So if people want to reach out to me and find out more about that, I'd be happy to share that with them as well. And I think I've always had a doctor, at least one doctor in every group, sometimes multiple.
All right, and I will leave links in the show notes below. Heather, I want to thank you so much for coming on and really offering this very hopeful future to a problem that so many women struggle with.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I love talking about this stuff.
All right, thanks again. And listeners, thank you. Just remember, there is always hope for a brighter future.